Happy New Year, it's time. Let's say goodbye to the old. Let's welcome the new. Every day is a new beginning. Every year is a new beginning. Let's start again. Let's release everything that we no longer need. And let's go into 2024 with a hopeful feeling, with a love feeling, and peace on earth and goodwill to all. Welcome to my celebration of the new year. Around 6:30 Eastern time. I did this before. I'm not going to keep the mask on the whole time. I just wanted to show you that I'm being festive. And in fact, I need to take it off now to get going. What we're going to do, which I have done a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It really helped me to get in the right frame of mind to greet the new year. And what I'm going to do is, I hope you're in a quiet place. Fix yourself a cup of tea or a cocktail or, whatever you're into. And I'm going to read from spiritual books that have inspired me greatly throughout the years, throughout the decades, interspersed with meditation. Like about 5 minutes of meditation. We got the fireworks going on because in some parts of the world it's already January 1st. So welcome, welcome. I have a pile of books here. Some of you who know me probably know that I pretty much wing it. I just do what I feel the guidance is telling me to do. So let us start with the science of mind. I'll read for about, we'll see, like 5 minutes maybe. And then we will actually go into a little quiet reflection time. So the Science of Mind is a book that's based on the principle that we are all one. That we are all directed by a divine mind. And let's see. And we have the power to create whatever we desire, including peace. So I'm just going to open to this page and I'm going to read to you. Let me know how you're doing and what you're doing tonight. We're going to start with perfect action. This book is a different edition. I'm probably not going to give you the right page, and I'm just opening up to whatever I see. Never let anything cause you to doubt your ability to demonstrate the truth. Conceive of your word as being the thing. See the desire as an already accomplished fact, and rest in perfect confidence, peace, and certainty. Never looking for results, never wondering, never becoming anxious, never being hurried nor worried. Those who do not understand this may think you are inactive, but to him who can perfectly practice inaction, all things are possible. All things are possible. Whatever we can conceive of, we will receive. I'm now going to read to you from my book, The 7-Day Key to Living Inspiration and Empowerment. This is available on Amazon, and I'm offering a free class. Go to my website if you'd like to sign up for that. It's a free class. I'm going to read to you. You'll get to know a little bit about how I got started. Introduction. Here, I'll hold up the book so you can look it up. It might have been some form of childhood depression. I remember a world of black and white and gray. Not much in the way of colors. Growing up in a coastal town in Massachusetts in the oldest fishing village in America, there was a lot of natural beauty around me, but I simply didn't feel very much in the way of inspiration. Through the years, as I grew a little wiser, I learned that my sense of despondency was not something that I was born with. I also realized that I didn't have to keep it. I began to notice that the messages in my head didn't originate from me. They were things I was told by the people around me. When you're young, you don't really have too many choices. You listen to what they are saying, and you take it in at a very deep level. What was said went something like this: what you see is what you get. Don't wish for that, because when it doesn't happen, you will just be disappointed. You can't afford it, so forget it. That's just the way it is. Don't expect it to change. I would venture to say that you can relate to some of these messages. Maybe you could even add some of your own. When I look back now, I feel that I was lucky. That is because there was another voice within me, continually having a second opinion and letting me know it. Repeatedly, it seemed to keep saying, guess what? You don't have to believe them. In my teen years, I stumbled upon a couple of what we call New Age books at the time. That's what we called them. These books began to give me a new sense of direction and understanding. In essence, they saved me from the morass of distorted, well-meaning but negative views of others. A certain place in my mind began to crack open that was longing to be set free. Something within finally began to experience a sense of reprise from limited ideas. If only for brief moments here and there, it felt like the spring thaw was stirring. I began to sense a world that no one was talking about. At first, I was a little confused. I figured either they had known the truth and decided to keep it from me, or I had come upon some new information that I would end up teaching. It was simple, but struck me in a profound way. Here's that truth. You create your own reality through your thinking. It was like a light had been switched on. Nothing else I had ever heard had felt this dead on, this accurate. I read one book, then another and another. Repeatedly I noticed each brought up this same topic of mind-affecting matter. To this day, I've never stopped reading and learning, and that's why we're here tonight. I continued living and growing up in the environment that I'd previously found so gray and limiting, but colors began to emerge. Though I was still young and not yet able to set out on my own, I noticed that my newfound awareness seemed to lend me an indomitable sense of possibility and strength. Slowly, this wisdom helped loosen the mental and emotional grip that my blue-collar, working-class hometown had on my conscious thinking. When I overheard someone saying, "That's just the way it is," and giving me a sense that I just had to go along with it, I noticed myself no longer accepting it. As I grew up, I went one step further, quietly rejecting the traditional role expected of me as a woman. Though I had the utmost respect for women who chose the mother/wife position at that time in life, I had always inwardly felt a strong sense that it wasn't for me. The new schools of thought I was exploring served the important role of giving me courage to stake out on my own path. I was inspired enough by my reading to listen to my own self rather than the traditional ways, discovering the many alternatives the world out there had to offer. I stumbled upon groups and individuals who were also practicing using the power of thought to shape their lives. I learned as much as I could about creating what I needed through my thinking and envisioning. Eventually, I became pretty good at it, attracting many wonderful things. Students and clients for my businesses, places to live and places to work from. I attracted true friends and associates who have helped me to advance my career. On the material end, I attracted anything from the menial, like clothes and small items, to the large, like cars and pianos. Whenever I needed to, which in my fledgling years was often, I worked hard at stopping myself from hanging on to negative emotions and perceptions of myself and the world around me. I would do this by looking to a more positive option, at least long enough to feel a shift. I was beginning to learn experientially that my mind is a tool and can work as my servant. I no longer viewed it as an indelible force that I could allow to go on and on unchecked and creating results I did not want. I began to learn that when I saw results show up in my life that were not favorable, my previous thinking was largely responsible. I became keenly aware of how I had worried those undesirable things into my reality. More and more I reminded myself of this and became better and better at directing my mind, speaking, and thinking in a positive way. Sometimes I found myself in a lot of fear and with no other available options, put to use what I was learning. I remember one time in particular when I was newly moved to Nashville in my 20s. One day I awoke to the realization I had simply run out of money for rent and food. It was then that I took out a large piece of paper and a marker and wrote myself a sign starkly stating what had to be done. It said, "Think positive. It's the only tool you've got." I sat down right then and started focusing my thoughts and writing down positive statements to bring to me what I needed. The very next day, money, food, friends, and jobs started to show up. Actually, when I think about it now, they have never stopped showing up. That's from my book, The 7-Day Key to Living Inspiration and Empowerment, which was published 10 years ago. It's available on Amazon, which was an appropriate way to start tonight because this is what it's all about. We create the reality that we have personally and collectively through the way that we hold our energy. So let's take a few moments, and I'm going to just kind of walk off stage and give you 5 minutes of reflection and contemplation, and then I'll come back. So take this time. You can fix yourself something to drink, something to eat. We're just going to take 5 minutes, and I'll be back with another thing to read. All right. And we're back. I'm going to read to you from Creative Companion by an author named Sark. It's about being an artist. How to Be an Artist by Sark. Written in marker pen. Stay loose. Learn to watch snails. Plant impossible gardens. Invite someone dangerous to tea. Make little signs that say yes and post them all over your house. Make friends with freedom and uncertainty. Look forward to dreams. Cry during movies. Swing as high as you can on a swing set by moonlight. Cultivate moods. Refuse to be responsible. Do it for love. Take lots of naps. Give money away. Do it now. The money will follow. Believe in magic. Laugh a lot. Celebrate every gorgeous moment. Take moon baths. Have wild imaginings, transformative dreams, and perfect calm. Draw on the walls. Read every day. Imagine yourself magic. Giggle with children. Listen to old people. Open up. Dive in. Be free. Bless yourself. Drive away fear. Play with everything. Entertain your inner child. You are innocent. Build a fort with blankets. Get wet. Hug trees. Write love letters. How to Be Really Alive. Once again, this is a Creative Companion by Sark. How to Free Your Creative Spirit. Live juicy. Stamp out conformity. Stay in bed all day. Dream of gypsy wagons. Find snails making love. Develop an astounding appetite for books. Drink sunsets. Draw out your feelings. Amaze yourself. Be ridiculous. Stop worrying now. If not now, then when? Make yes your favorite word. Marry yourself. Dry your clothes in the sun. Eat mangoes naked. That's actually the title of another of her books. Keep toys in the bathtub. Spin yourself dizzy. Hang upside down. Follow a child. Celebrate an old person. Send a love letter to yourself. Be advanced. Try endearing. Invent new ways to love. Transform negatives. Delight someone. Wear pajamas to a drive-in movie. Allow yourself to feel rich without money. Be who you truly are, and the money will follow. Believe in everything. You are always on your way to a miracle. The miracle is you. This is a wonderful book. Sark has a lot of other books that are all written in marker pen. Wasn't that nice? Let's go now to How to Let God Help You. This is by Myrtle Fillmore, Charles Fillmore's wife, the founders of Unity. So I'm going to just read what I turned to. This is chapter 14 called Spiritual Understanding. Walk on a beach, exactly. Spiritual understanding. If you would grow in understanding of spiritual things, become as a little child and let the universal spirit of good teach you. Do not strain your intellect in trying to understand the mighty questions of life. Wait until you have developed faculties which can comprehend them. Wait until you have developed faculties which can comprehend them. There is a running to and fro among men that will never cease so long as they try to explain spiritual things with the intellect. Listen to the stillness within your own soul, and you will find it resonant with a new tongue. The world lacks spiritual understanding. All about us are those who preach and teach the so-called religion and doctrine of Jesus Christ, yet how few there are who have the understanding of reality, which he promised will come to those who believe. It is quite evident that they do not have the understanding of his teaching that leads to the signs mentioned in the last chapter of Mark as bearing witness of those who believe. It is found in the study of truth, capital T, that these signs do follow those who get the spiritual understanding, which comes with a full acceptance of spiritual science. So what she's saying is these signs come to those who are getting the spiritual understanding. We receive signs. A partial understanding is accompanied by a manifestation of a part of the signs. Even the slightest spiritual perception leads to the unfoldment in many people of the power to heal the sick. This is being demonstrated all over the land. It is becoming so common that on every hand, infants in spiritual understanding are now doing mighty works and bringing health to invalids. I wanted to stop there and mention to you that there's a lot of work being done by Joe Dispenza of having groups of people, big groups of people that are working on their intentionality and meditation and visualizing, and they're finding that people are just healing in the workshops. So that's pretty good stuff. It's all in the way that we hold our beliefs and the way that we hold our feeling energy. I forgot to mention this is a fundraiser for my channel, so I appreciate the contributions. I'm going to read from Conversations with God, Book 2, Neale Donald Walsch. I'll read a little bit out of this, and then we'll have maybe just a 3-minute break or 3 to 5 minute break to reflect. We'll see what we turn to. So in Conversations with God, Neale Donald Walsch, he was going through a rough time in life. He was homeless. He had lost his job. He had lost his marriage. He had lost everything. And he sat down and started to write. And when he wrote, he got answers. So I'm going to read to you. I'm just going to read to you from this page. We seem to be, this happened the last time too, we keep coming to the same theme. So Neale says to God, so all it takes is Christ consciousness to perform miracles. Well, that should make things simple, he said kind of sarcastically. Actually, says God, it does. More simple than you think. And many have achieved such consciousness. Many have been Christed, not just Jesus of Nazareth. You can be Christed too. And Neale says, how? And then God says, by seeking to be, by choosing to be Christed. But it is a choice you must make every day, every minute. It must become the very purpose of your life. It is the purpose of your life. You simply do not know it. And even if you know it, even if you remember the exquisite reason for your very existence, you do not seem to know how to get there from where you are. So that's God speaking. It's a conversation. And Donald says, yes, that is the case. So how can I get from where I am to where I want to be? It's Neale, actually, Neale Donald. So he's asking, how can I get from where I am to where I want to be? He's asking of God. And God says, I tell you this again, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. And then Neil replies, I've been seeking and knocking for 35 years. You'll pardon me if I'm a little bored with that line. And then God responds, if not to say disillusioned, yes, but really, while I have to give you good grades for trying, an A for effort, so to speak, I can't agree with you that you've been seeking and knocking for 35 years. Let's agree that you've been seeking and knocking on and off for 35 years. On and off, mostly off. In the past, Neil, when you were very young, you came to me, to God, only when you were in trouble, when you needed something. As you grew older and matured, you realized that was probably not a right relationship with God and sought to create something more meaningful. Even then, I was hardly more than a sometimes thing. Still later, as you came to understand that union with God can be achieved only through communion with God, you undertook the practices and behaviors that could achieve communion with God, yet even these you engaged sporadically and inconsistently. You meditated, you held ritual, you called me, God, forth. In prayer and chant, you evoked the Spirit of God in you, but only when it suited you, only when you felt inspired to. And glorious as your experience of me was, even on these occasions, still you've spent 95% of your life caught up in the illusion of separateness, and only flickering moments here and there in the realization of ultimate reality. You still think your life is about car repairs and telephone bills and what you want out of relationships, that it's about the dramas you've created rather than the creator of those dramas. You have yet to learn why you keep creating your dramas. You're too busy playing them out. That goes right along with the sermon today at Church of Spirituality. All right, time for a sip of tea. How are you all doing? Happy New Year. It's New Year's Day in Europe. Are you having a drink and something to eat? It's a party. I'll read one more thing to you and we'll take a little few-minute meditation break, just a silent time. But before I do that, I want to just let everyone know tomorrow we're having a party. It's a vision board party on Zoom. Go to psychicannetteDion.com to sign up for that. It's going to be fun. I love starting the year off with intentions, and we're going to make sure that we make them happen. Sandy's got her candles out. This is a little book that was sent to me by one of my viewers. And it's by Jack and Cornelia Addington. And this book was printed in 1966. And I'm just going to read the first page. There is no power in conditions. There is no power in situations. There is only power in God, Almighty God, within me, within you, right now. There is no person, place, thing, condition, or circumstance that can interfere with the perfect right action of God Almighty within me and you right now. I and we are pure spirit living in a spiritual world, and all things are possible with God through me. And so I'm going to read another page from this book. I don't think you can get this book because it's so very old, but it's called Your Needs Met. For thou wilt light my candle, the Lord will enlighten my darkness, from the book of Psalms. Every problem known to man has an answer. Concealed within each problem is an opportunity for spiritual growth, resulting in greater understanding. The problem veils some hidden truth that must eventually be understood. Once this truth is discovered, it is as if a door is opened from within, through which the student steps into a new and larger room. I just described that in my book that I wrote. It has been said, excuse me, where we are tightest, there we need stretching. excuse me. The law of life is exacting. The law of life provides with uncanny precision just the growth that each one needs. To us is given a choice. We can struggle with the problem, railing at life for sending the problem, or we can bless the growth that it contains and set about to find the hidden truth that will unlock the door to the perfect solution. It is like a jigsaw puzzle. Once the missing piece is found, the other pieces will fall into place. The finished picture emerges. The truth that has seemed to be hidden is eager and willing to reveal itself. Behold, I stand at the door and knock, says the Spirit of truth within. And if any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him. I want to just let you all know what I'm reading tonight is completely not planned. And we keep coming up with the same message. Truth, real truth. That word is sacred to me. I don't want anybody messing with it. You know what I'm talking about. One more and then we'll take a few minute break and you can call your friends and tell them to tune in. This is called You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought. I had mentioned it before and I didn't have the book anymore, but Warren, who's in the chat, sent me a copy. Choose well your companions. A noble person attracts noble people and knows how to hold on to them. If you know people who have a positive direction to their lives or who are working on one, you may find them rewarding to be around. Conversely, people who are addicted to their negative thinking and refuse to recognize it can be a drag. They feed you negativity and criticize every positive move you make. Negative thinkers are a great challenge. If possible, avoid the challenge. Fill your life with people who applaud your positive thoughts, feelings, and actions, who encourage you toward more and better, who know how to praise the good and the beautiful. As said before, you don't have to spend time with people you don't want to. If you choose to spend time with them, you're entitled to set the rules. I don't want to discuss negative things, you can say. If they don't like it, and they probably won't, they're entitled to go elsewhere and spend time with people who do. If there are people you feel you must spend time with, usually relatives, A, try to do it on the phone, and B, use the time with them to learn something about yourself. Watching how other people negate and sabotage themselves can provide you with a blueprint of how you may be doing it to yourself. We don't have to get negative about their negativity. All right, let's take a few minute break. Warren wants a group hug, so we'll do a group hug. It's really just a very short break so you can kind of reflect and assimilate on what was read. All right, 1, 2, 3, group hug. Happy New Year! I can feel us lifting up the energy. All right, so 5-minute break. You can talk amongst yourselves. right, it's almost time to read again. I'm so grateful that you're here. We'll do another group hug. Not right this sec, but we will do another group hug. Warren's in the chat, he insists. This book, I don't think that you can get this book anymore. You can look for it. Many of you know that I met Sadhguru in 1998, in October of 1998. This is the first book that was published by Isha, and this is Sadhguru's signature. It says, "May you know bliss, love and blessings, Jaggi." That's his first name. And this book came out so it's called Encounter the Enlightened. As I said, I'm not sure if you can still get it. If you go to ishafoundation.org, you may be able to. This is published in 2001. I was living in Nashville then. I'm going to read to you, this is a Q&A, a book of Q&A, and I'm going to read to you a question that I asked him that ended up being in the book. So this is what I asked to Jaggi. This was me. How can I quiet down my mind? It seems like the longer I do my practices, the mind seems to be telling me that I have more important things to do, even though I know I want to do my practices. And then Sadhguru said, the very first step in this Sahaja Sthiti Yoga, the first step is to see whatever is happening within me is my responsibility. Now, it is not that you have become disidentified with mind right now, but at the same time, you are talking as if you are disidentified with the mind. Now you are blaming the mind. So he's talking to me. I'm blaming the mind, saying, it's not me. I want to do my practices, but my mind, you know? If you had a mother-in-law in the house, you would have chosen the mother-in-law, but you don't have one, and so you are choosing your mind. Somebody to pass the buck to. So your mind is chattering, whether your body is well, your body is ill, or whatever. The first thing to see is it's my responsibility. Then everything gets centered into one place. Otherwise, your life is scattered. Please see. If I think my mind is like this, so my practices are like this, my mind is responsible, my career is like this, my boss is responsible, something is like that, somebody else is responsible. Now your life is scattered, isn't it? The first thing is to get it centered, so then you see it's me, nothing else but me. Whatever may be happening or whatever may not be happening, it's just me. Now you have become straight with life. This is not spirituality. This is just learning to be absolutely straight. That's the first step, the most important step. In the name of religion, you have lost your basic ability to be straight. Unfortunately, if you look carefully at all kinds of minds, you will see a criminal's mind is more straight than the so-called religious people's minds. Really. At least their values are quite straightforward, you know. They know what they want, and they pursue that irrespective of the risks involved, isn't it? But in the name of religion, we make the mind so devious. See, this is a simple fact. Everybody's saying, I love God, I love Jesus, whichever form they might have been told. Here you say Jesus, there they say something else. Where did this love come from for a man you did not meet? When you have no love for people that are sitting right next to you, you can't say hello to them. From where do you get all this love for a man who was 2,000 years ago? Now suppose they told you right from your childhood, if you love God, your life will be absolutely miserable. Would you love God? Would you seek God? They have told you if you seek God, your life will become beautiful, everything will work, your career will bloom, your bank balance will raise, your relationships will be wonderful, and you will go to heaven, eternal pleasure, yes? All you're seeking is a candy, not God. You make it so devious, like as if you are actually seeking God, But what you're seeking is a cheaper currency than the dollar. To get what you want through the dollar is difficult. You have to work. This is a cheaper currency, you know. If they told you that if you worship God, you will lose everything, would you worship him? No, isn't it? This is the reason why a whole culture was created. In India, we were always told if you seek Shiva, he will destroy you. He will devastate your life. So all the ancient prayers in India are, the devotees are praying, please destroy me. Take away everything. I shouldn't even get a morsel of food in my life. Make it like that. That seems to be crazy, isn't it? And that's how all prayers are. Now, this man is seeking, please destroy me the way I am. He's not saying save me, he's saying destroy me. Now, please see, what you're seeking is not God. What you're seeking is not heaven. What you're seeking is free happiness all the time. Isn't it? Isn't it so? If they told you that if you seek God, you will be miserable, you would not seek him. You will avoid him. Only because they told you that if you seek him, everything will happen for you while you are seeking him. So what you want is well-being, and you are not willing to admit it. You better admit it. Be straight with life, first step. If you are straight with life, then we can see what else. Then you know that even if everything is there, even when your life is well, it's still very limited. Then we can see how to cross the threshold of those limitations. If you're not even straight with yourself, how to get you anywhere, isn't it? If you can't afford to be straight with everybody in the world, at least be straight with yourself. So that was Sadhguru's response to my question. I didn't read the whole response, but he's gotten gentler since then. But that's just about, we have to, if we say we want something, we have to be straight with ourselves. We have to say, this is what I want, this is what I'm willing to do. We have to be honest and straight with ourselves. Let's read a little bit more, and then we'll take a little 5-minute hiatus. And I'm going to read to you from a book called The Power of the Witch. And I'm going to clarify for all of you what a witch is. When you see a witch, this is Laurie Cabot, who's the official Salem, Massachusetts witch. This is her first book. I believe it was her first book, and it came out in, I think, the early 90s. Let me just check. 1989. I think she's still around. I think Laurie Cabot's she might have just turned 90. And she says, when you see me on the streets of Salem, you know that I am a witch. I dress like one. Some people shield their eyes when they pass me because they have been taught that you should not look a witch in the eye. They believe something awful might happen. Others come right up to me and look at the pentacle I wear around my neck or the rings on my fingers. There's a pentacle ring. Just wanted to show you. From Salem. Or to touch my black robe because they have heard that a witch has healing power and something wonderful will happen to those who touch her. There are other witches besides me in Salem, just as there are witches in every part of the world and always have been. Most witches today do not wear traditional witch clothing and jewelry for fairly obvious reasons, religious and political authorities, who still misunderstand our beliefs and practices. They continue to harass us. A witch friend of mine was recently fired from her job as a hairstylist because she wore her pentacle on a chain around her neck. Another friend was not allowed to put Wicca on the admitting form at a local hospital when he was asked to state his religion. The clerk refused to type it and left the line blank. These witches were open about who they were. Many, however, are not. You can't tell most witches by the way they dress or by their jewelry, which is often hidden beneath their clothes. You can spot them by their magic. As a young girl growing up in California, I didn't know that I was a witch. I didn't really know what the word witch meant or what a witch was. I didn't even realize that my talents were any different from other people's. Today I would say they were not different. I simply retained those talents and developed them while other children lost them. The first media witch I ever saw was in Walt Disney's film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Even though I was a small child, I sensed that it was not a true portrait of a witch. I guess I accepted the fact that a wicked queen who had magical powers could turn herself into a hideous old hag, but I instinctively knew that there was more to it than that. I knew those powers could also be used for good. Wasn't the prince's kiss that woke Snow White from her sleep also magic? I resisted the notion that magic was the work of devils and evildoers. I knew a magic kiss could undo evil. I'm going to just read a little bit more. Certain things are everlasting. Magic is one of them. It comes from the Persian and Greek roots magis and magos, which means wise. The English word magi, meaning wise men, comes from them. Witches are among the wise ones who participate in the work of creation in order to nourish the people and protect the earth. Magic belongs to no one culture, society, or tribe. It is part of the universal wisdom. Magic makers in every century and in every culture have played similar roles and shared similar characteristics. Whether they were called witches, shamans, priests, priestesses, sages, medicine people, or mystics, they knew how to heal the sick, summon the herds, grow crops, assist at births, track the influence of stars and planets, and build temples and sacred mounds. They knew the secrets of the earth, the powers of the moon, the longings of the human heart. They invented language, writing, metallurgy, law, agriculture, and the arts. Their rituals and ceremonies, their spells and incantations, their prayers and sacrifices were expressions of their oneness with the source of all life, the great mother of all living things. First and foremost, the magic makers were healers who could diagnose illness and prescribe the correct medicine and ritual to heal their patients. Always performed in a social context that included the family and relatives, the ancient healer's magic worked because it was holistic, drawing on the patient's own healing power and working with the elements and spirits of the patient's environment. It dealt with both the physical and spiritual causes of disease, the invasion of harmful spirits or substances, and the debilitating effects of soul loss. Ancient healers could withdraw the harmful objects from the body and retrieve lost souls. Ancient magic workers were also spiritual leaders and counselors who officiated at important rites of passage. They performed marriages, sanctified births, anointed the newborn, initiated young people into adulthood, and led the souls of the dying into the next world. Because they stood between the worlds of spirit and matter, they could serve as bridges and mediators between the human and the divine. People came to them with their visions and dreams. Sometimes they alone could help an individual discover his or her guardian spirits and sacred names. As compelling seers, prophets, and visionaries, they answered questions about the past and the future. They interpreted omens. They advised on auspicious times to plant, get married, travel, go on vision quests. Some of them had the power to raise storms, bring rain, and calm seas. So, all that you ever thought about Wicca and witchcraft, all the negatives, you can just erase that. We've had, throughout thousands and thousands of years, all cultures have had people that use the elements to create magic. Let's take a 5-minute break, and I'll be back shortly. Talk amongst yourselves, go get something to eat, call a friend, say Happy New Year, watch the celebrations around the world, and thanks for being here. Thank you to the Wrenches for being here. And we will reconvene in 5 minutes. You can just reflect on what I read. That's why I'm taking these 5-minute breaks. All right. Be back soon. Coming back for some more wisdom. In a moment. And we're back. We're going to read from Dr. Dyer's book. He has so many. We're going to read from There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. And this is called It's All Energy. And there's a quote from Albert Einstein here. Nothing happens until something moves. Spiritual problem solving ultimately means examining the entire concept of energy in a new way. Generally, we think of people with high energy in terms of stamina and vigor, with qualities of enthusiasm and tirelessness. I am suggesting you think of energy in a context of vibration and movement. In this formulation, energy is the speed of an individual's energy field. The idea here is that a higher frequency will aid in problem solving, whereas a lower frequency will intensify problems and inhibit solutions. This is a crucial point in the simplified paradigm I present here and in Chapter 4. This is a really great book if you want to get it. You have within you the absolute ability to increase your frequency and enhance the energy field of your everyday life. By increasing the speed at which you vibrate, you move into those frequencies I am calling spirit, and away from those that are grounded in the material world of problems. Stephen Hawking, who may be the most scientifically enlightened mind on the planet today, has said, apparently, common sense notions work well when dealing with material things like apples and or comparatively slow-moving things like planets, but they don't work at all for things moving at the speed of light. Hence, if you want to access and utilize the energy that vibrates at faster frequencies than ordinary levels of awareness, you have to be able to shift your energy at appropriate times out of good old-fashioned common sense. Valerie Hunt, in her well-documented and intriguing book, Infinite Mind, Science of the Human Vibrations of Consciousness, concludes, as a result of my work, I can no longer consider the body as organic systems or tissues. The healthy body is a flowing, interactive, electrodynamic energy field. Motion is more natural to life than non-motion. Things that keep flowing are inherently good. What interferes with flow will have detrimental effects. And Wayne says, I do not expect you to become an expert on electrodynamic energy fields or to explore this ever-growing field of quantum energy physics. All I want is to introduce you to the fundamental awareness necessary to activate your higher frequency. Here are 5 simplified, verifiable facts, which it is my hope will introduce you to your innate ability to do that, to raise your frequency. 1 fact, everything vibrates and everything moves. 2, faster vibrations means getting closer to spirit, to that vibration. 3, slower vibrations keep us in the world of problems. Thank you. 4, you can choose to eliminate whatever interferes with increasing your vibrational field. I'm going to read that one again. You can choose to eliminate whatever interferes with increasing your vibrational field. Thanks, Joan. 5, you can negotiate the presence of factors in your life to increase your frequency of vibrations. There you have it in a nutshell. A spiritual solution to your every problem includes changing your energy field so that you can access the fastest frequency and choose to implement it at will in your daily life. Now let's take a closer look at these 5 basics and how they will help you implement your spiritual solutions. Everything vibrates, everything moves. If you look at a page of this book through an extremely powerful microscope, you will see it is a dance with molecules, atoms, electrons, and subatomic particles moving about in ceaseless energy patterns. The book appears solid because your senses, which also vibrate, perceive solidity at this frequency. Thus, this book is energy slowed way down, so it appears as a solid mass. This is also true of your body and everything in the material world. All slowed down energy that appears not to vibrate, but one look under the microscope, the really powerful microscope, gives us that astonishing view of motion. Likewise, everything is in a state of motion. We appear to be sitting still, but we know that our planet is spinning once every 24 hours, orbiting the sun once every 365 days, and moving through space at dizzying speeds. Spinning, orbiting, and moving are all verbs describing movement. The same can be said of your body. It is a field of vibration and movement which appears solid and motionless. All information that you receive comes to you through your senses. Your eyes perceive light, which is actually a very fast vibration of air and electromagnetic particles. Your ears perceive sound, which is a slower frequency of air vibrations. Were you to examine that information perceived by your eyes and ears before your senses pick them up, you would see that those vibrations have no evil or disharmony inherent in them. They are simply problem-free vibrations. But when you take them in, suddenly you say, what I hear is a problem for me. What I see is evil and terrible, and so on. In other words, you took on those problems, and you took in those problem-free, faster energies and processed them in such a way as to create problems. Even though the energy that you received was totally devoid of anything even resembling a problem or evil or terrible. Keep this important notion uppermost in your mind as he continues with in the book. But Wayne Dyer said, I don't know if this is his original quote or if he got it from somewhere else, but when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that was very much in alignment with that idea. So when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. I found that we tend to make up negative stories in our head, so we use the energy in a negative way. Okay, let's read from Louise Hay. These are people that were on the physical plane up until, Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay, up until maybe 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. But they're very much accessible to us. You can heal your life. A lot of people own this. I know you do. Deserving. Page 114. I don't know, I think the editions probably have different page numbers. If we do not accept the idea that we deserve to prosper, then even when abundance falls in our laps, we will refuse it somehow. I know, it's hard to believe. If we do not accept the idea that we deserve to prosper, then even when abundance falls in our laps, we will refuse it somehow. Look at this example. She says, a student in one of my classes was working to increase his prosperity. He came to class one night so excited, for he had just won $500. This is a long time ago. He kept saying, I don't believe it. I never win anything. We knew it was a reflection of his changing consciousness. He still felt he did not really deserve it. Next week, he could not come to class as he had broken his leg. The doctor bills came to $500. He had been frightened to move forward in a new prosperous direction and felt undeserving. So he punished himself in this way. Whatever we concentrate on increases. So don't concentrate on your bills. Don't concentrate on lack. If you concentrate on lack and debt, then you create more lack and debt. There is an inexhaustible supply in the universe. Begin to be aware of it. Take the time to count the stars on a clear evening, or the grains of sand in one handful, the leaves on one branch of a tree, the raindrops on a window pane, the seeds in one tomato. Each seed is capable of producing a whole vine with unlimited tomatoes on it. Be grateful for what you do have, and you will find that it increases. I like to bless with love all that is in my life now. My home, the heat, water, light, telephone, furniture, plumbing, appliances, clothing, transportation, jobs, the money I do have, friends, my ability to see and feel and taste and touch and walk and to enjoy this incredible planet. Our own belief in lack and limitation is the only thing that is limiting us. What belief is limiting you? So after I read from There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, it kind of goes hand in hand. Because it's our vibration that where our thoughts are at that attracts or doesn't attract things. Do you want to have money only to help others? Then you are saying you are worthless. Be sure you are not rejecting prosperity now. If a friend invites you to lunch or dinner, accept with joy and pleasure. Don't feel you are just trading with people. If you get a gift, accept it graciously. If you can't use the gift, pass it on to someone else. Keep the flow of things moving through you. Just smile and say thank you. In this way, you let the universe know you are ready to receive your good. And so, that's Louise Hay. Let's take a few-minute break. This break is going to be shorter. It's going to be a 3-minute break. Just changing it up. And be back shortly. Coming back. I read from I read from Sark's A Creative Companion. One of the pages that I read from mentioned Eat Mangoes Naked. So this is called Eat Mangoes Naked by Sark. I don't think I've ever done that. I'm going to open to a page. See what she has here. Pleasure in Doing Things Badly by Sark. My friend Rebecca Latimer, in her book You're Not Old Until You're 90, speaks beautifully about pleasure in doing things badly. Meditation works even when you do it badly, so don't wait until you're better, just start now. This also applies to everything else. And then Sark says, I am a recovering perfectionist, and it's very difficult for me to release my self-expectations and do less than my best. So when I was at the dentist recently, I made a bold move. The hygienist was digging around in the plaque on my teeth, and it was so hot in the room, sweat was trickling into my ears. I put my hand on her arm and said, we'll stop here. She replied, but we're not done. I told her it was okay to do it badly or partially and unclipped my little dental bib, thanked her, told her I'd return for more another day and left. I love that. I felt such a new sheer pleasure at leaving before it was perfect. She says, I'm learning to just show up and do what I can even when it's not up to my visual standards. I'm going to learn how to have lots of standards. I bought this book about perfection, and the title haunted me every time I saw it. And the name of the book is called Never Good Enough by Monica Ramirez Basco, B-A-S-C-O. Never Good Enough. I hadn't heard of that book. So I took the jacket off the book and wrote directly on the hardcover, good enough. These words bring me pleasure every time I see them and remind me that I can be variable and flawed. Even do some things badly. What if I gave a dinner party and nobody came? I could monopolize the conversation. So there's a picture there. Like doing it badly. What if I gave a dinner party and nobody came? I could monopolize the conversation. Proceed anyway. Meditation retreats that scare me and giving myself permission to leave before they're over. Wilderness hiking, making more healthcare appointments and changing them as needed. I think we can open up and do more badly, poorly, incompetently, and find pleasure there too. She says, I play the piano every day in an amateur fashion and yet receive so much pleasure from it. I know that my pleasure could drain away if I tried to become a skilled pianist. My yoga practice is wobbly and self-styled, and I really enjoy it. Of course, there's room for expertise, competence, and being our best. There's a lot more room for playing in other realms, too. Take pleasure in a poorly planned picnic, an ill-conceived car trip, a rainy baseball game, feeble hiking. What experiments can you make with accomplishments in your life? What can you do badly and more often? That's great. Perfectionism is not a fun thing. I'm going to next read from Seasons of Prosperity. This was written by my teacher, Tony Stone, who left the earthly realm in August of 2020, I believe it was, or 2021. Very powerful teacher. There's Tony Stone there. And it inspires me to make sure that I have a body of work to leave behind, because we're all going to go someday. And Tony Stone was a very, very dedicated prosperity teacher. She was a very spiritual woman. She was a very tough woman, kind of hard to get along with. Was no nonsense, you know, like I was reading about Sadhguru telling me you got to be straight. You got to be straight with yourself. You got to be straight with yourself. Just like being honest with yourself, being consistent. Tony was very much a teacher like that. And I'm going to just read, when I worked with her, when I went to her home, she would break down prayer sessions. She did prayer sessions 4 times a day, 10 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the morning, and at night too, 10 o'clock at night. So it was really something. So she wrote books of affirmations, and I'm going to read For Earth, the Time is Now. Oh, thank you, Chuck. Yeah, I've got people on the other side that have really, really taught me immense, wonderful things. And she has a quote here from Psalms 147, verse 4. He tells the number of the stars, he calls them all by their names. And if you're interested in any of her books, the place to go is wonderworks.org. One word, wonderworks.org. And her husband still distributes her work, and it's in Fairfax, Vermont. For Earth, the time is now. And here are some affirmations for the Earth. Earth people are galaxy people now. Our perceptions create the combining realities we see. The time is now for a new vision of a new Earth. Today we awaken to enlightened thinking. Today we are willing for courageous actions. We see that on Earth unity is manifesting, growth is natural. We are talking and walking toward a bright future. Things are changing for the best around us now. We see spiritualization of value systems all around the world today. We are seeing a new face to this world. We are grateful. There is global shifting of consciousness now. We let go the dictates of matter directing. We recognize mind as source of matter. Mind directs. We take on responsibility for generative thinking and feeling. Today, all over the earth, myriads of wonderful life forms are reviving and revitalizing others. The will of the infinite is made manifest in the finite now. And so it is. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read there. We declare that peace is prevailing on earth. And I'm going to read the countries. We intend happiness and good fortune for all the people. In the face of any appearance, peace prevails and justice is served. The divine force of order is at work today in all the following countries: Afghanistan, Antigua and Barbuda, Australia, Bahrain, Belgium, Bolivia, Brazil, Cambodia, Central African Republic, China, Costa Rica, Cyprus, Dominica, Egypt, Ethiopia, Gabon, Greece, Guinea, Bissau, Hungary, Iran, Italy, Kazakhstan, Latvia, Liberia, Luxembourg, the Maldives, Mauritania, Moldova, Myanmar, New Zealand, North Korea, Panama, the Philippines, Romania, St. Lucia, Sao Tome and Principe, Seychelles, Solomon Islands, Spain, Swaziland, Tanzania, Tunisia, Ukraine, Albania, Austria, Bangladesh, Belize, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Brunei, Cameroon, Colombia, Côte d'Ivoire, Czechoslovakia, the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Fiji, Gambia, Grenada, Guyana, Iceland, Iraq, Jamaica, Kenya, Laos, Libya, Madagascar, Mali, Mauritius, Mongolia, Namibia, Nicaragua, Norway, Papua New Guinea, Poland, Russia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Sierra Leone, Somalia, Sri Lanka, Sweden, Thailand, Turkey, Russia, Algeria, Argentina, Azerbaijan, Barbados, Benin, Bulgaria, Canada, Chad, Comoros, Croatia, Denmark, Equatorial Guinea, Finland, Germany, Guatemala, Haiti, India, Ireland, Japan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Liechtenstein, Malawi, Malta, Mexico, Morocco, Nepal, Niger, Oman, Paraguay, Portugal, Rwanda, Grenadines, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, South Africa, Sudan, Syria, Togo, Turkmenistan, United Arab Emirates, Angola, Armenia, Bahamas, Belarus, Bhutan, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Chile, Congo, Cuba, Djibouti, Ecuador, Estonia, France, Ghana, Guinea, Honduras, Indonesia, Israel, Jordan, Kyrgyzstan, Lesotho, Lithuania, Malaysia, Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Mozambique, the Netherlands, Nigeria, Pakistan, Peru, Qatar, St. Kitts and Nevis, San Marino, Senegal, Slovenia, South Korea, Suriname, Tajikistan, Trinidad and Tobago, Uganda, the United Kingdom, United States, Venezuela, Yugoslavia, Uruguay, Vietnam, Zaire, Uzbekistan, Western Samoa, Zambia, Vanuatu, Yemen, and Zimbabwe, and all regions of the world not listed here. Love the children of God. Let's take a break for 3 minutes after that. Let's just reflect on the world and world peace. And I'll be right back. This is fun, isn't it? I got some good ones. I got some really good ones. This book is so old. I don't know if this is the original. This is one of my very favorite authors of all time. This is The Force by Stuart Wilde, W-I-L-D-E. Stuart is spelled, oh yeah, this is old. S-T-U-A-R-T-W-I-L-D-E. Okay, so this is where it all began with Stuart Wilde, and also I'm going to read to you from Shakti Gawain. She's also on the other side now. And there's more. So The Force begins with this is published in 1984. Understanding the universal law allows you to bend reality, and eventually knowledge sets you free. Let's see, what do we want to read from The Force? So Stuart Wilde died about probably 20 years ago in a car accident. At your birth, the spirit that is the real you entered the earth plane for a short period of special training. It chose the experience as a part of a wider spiritual goal, for it knew there was no way it could reach that goal without first passing through the physical. Before you began your life, you knew what the spiritual goal was, and you had the ability to review in a dimension beyond the earth plane the general circumstances of your upcoming existence, the body your spiritual energy would inhabit. The body your spiritual energy would inhabit. The parentage that would help you to develop. The geographic area you would find yourself in. Your interpersonal relationships. Your karmic ties. And the evolution of the earth at the time you are about to enter it. Oh, Darren's saying Stuart Wilde's 28-year-old daughter died recently. Oh, that's interesting. Sorry, I'm not reading the chat. I'm so busy reading everything else. You, or the spiritual part of you anyway, reviewed all of this and made the choice deliberately. Your soul made the choice deliberately. To understand this concept more fully, let us discuss the real you, the spirit entity that existed before your current existence on the earth plane. Since there are no words in our language to describe that energy, we will call it your higher self. Although this term can be misleading because your real spiritual identity is not higher than you, it is you. Let us accept it for simplicity's sake so that we can move on. Your higher self is a collective body of energy. It is vast and it is ageless. It is everything that you have ever been, stretching back to the edge of infinity. Within it is all the knowledge that you will ever need. And through it, you can experience a limitless understanding of yourself in the physical plane, as well as of the unseen dimensions that lie close at hand. Your higher self is sustained by an intrinsic energy that is even bigger than itself. This sustaining energy we will call the Force, or the living spirit. The Force, like your higher self, is an energy that experiences evolution. It is massive, exhilarating, magnanimous, beyond description. Perhaps you might want to call it God. It is not stagnant, as some would have you believe. It is growing, dynamic, and has an inner drive or desire to become more of itself. To achieve this, it divides itself into more and more separate parts or definitions, and it does so because it knows by dividing and spreading out, it will have more power, and having more power, it will grow. Thank you, Suzanne. The Force is a part of each and everything in the physical plane. This includes our planet, the stars, and the galaxies, and the physical universe as it stretches out in space beyond our perceptions. By its very nature, the force is immortal and never-ending, and because it is the inner light or livingness within all things, we call it universal. The more life force a thing expresses, the more complicated or greater is the extent of the force within it. Therefore, a small bird expresses more of the force than does a rock, and a human being expresses still more than a bird. But everything has the force within it, and that is the key to an individual's understanding. The spiritual energy of your higher self also has the force within it, and it too wants to grow. It began its existence by individualizing itself from the force, and it realized that, like the force, it could expand by dividing itself into more and more experiences. Among the things it has been are your past lives, but even before it entered your human body, it had various experiences that would help it adjust to the vibrational force of the physical plane. Up to this point, it might have had 20,000 experiences, maybe more. It would have had experiences as energy and light, as electricity and sound, as lesser forms of existence, which allowed it gradually to adjust to the earth plane. For the higher self would not enter the university of the physical experience in a complex form. It would have to go through energy experiences, much like a kindergarten. It is interesting to think there is a spiritual evolution in all things, that in the sound of a pebble tumbling over a cliff or within a flower, there are countless dimensions of evolution, higher selves experiencing, training, destined, perhaps one day, to be human. 600 lifetimes ago, your higher self might have had an experience as a cow, and bit by bit learned to adapt its energy to the physical plane. As it learned, it became more courageous. Finally, it felt itself ready to enter the human form, and did so because humanity being the highest expression of the force on the earth plane, this was a natural progression. I'm going to just jump to another page. The spirit world consists of thought forms and energy from the force that vitalizes it. The thought patterns that you project into the spirit world are what you will experience. The nature of the world, the spirit world, is such that your thoughts and feelings are instantly magnified around you. So he's talking about on the physical plane, things move slowly. On the spiritual plane, it's a higher frequency. It's the nature of the vibration of the spirit world that's led to stories of heaven and hell being incorporated into the belief patterns of many religions. When you enter the spirit world, your external experiences are in fact manifestations of the inner you. And it is this externalization that's become known in the holy books as the last judgment. It's not a judgment in the sense that there is really any right or wrong. It is a judgment whereby you experience yourself, and in doing so you automatically drift to that area in the spirit world that is parasympathetic with your energy pattern. So what he's discussing here is about when we cross over to the spiritual realm, we have experiences that are congruent with what we were resonating at on the earthly plane. On the earth plane, thoughts and feelings come back to you slowly. What makes the physical plane such a fascinating training ground is the fact that you practice controlling energy and its reactions without having to experience the consequences immediately. This allows you time to adjust before you go into higher planes of existence, where energy patterns materialize faster and are thus harder to master. So he talks about how sometimes on the physical plane we're working with energy, and we don't want every one of our thoughts to manifest immediately, but that's how it is on the spirit plane, because we have a little bit of a delay, and that's a good thing because we can adjust our energy and sort of change things before they get too much momentum. Let's read from Shakti Gawain. I'm going to read Getting Conscious. Shakti Gawain is also on the other side. She died maybe 8 years ago. She talks about going traveling, and then Getting Conscious is the name of this chapter. When I returned to the United States, I was hooked on something called consciousness after she had studied Eastern religions. I couldn't have defined what it was, but I knew that I wanted more of it, and that for me, nothing else mattered as much as my process of personal growth. I felt that if I pursued external goals such as career, money, or relationships, they would ultimately feel empty. Whereas if I devoted myself to my own development, I would ultimately have the things that my heart desired, such as loving relationships, meaningful work, and a sense of abundance, and that it would all come about in a more satisfying way. I was motivated not only by my yearning to find greater fulfillment in my own life, but by a strong desire to make a contribution toward positive change in the world and in other people's healing and happiness. And Shakti Gawain goes on to say, I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, which I recognize as the forefront of the so-called human potential movement, and plunged into the earnest pursuit of knowledge, wisdom, healing, and transformation. I took classes and workshops, avidly read new books, meditated, and talked constantly to others involved in the same process. After reading Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes, I went to live at his center in Berkeley, where we worked on our growth intensely day and night for a year. After that, I continued to live communally for several years with others who were involved in an intensive personal development process. During this time, I did whatever I could to make enough money to live on. Housework, office work, odds and ends, while I focused on my real work. So she's talking about her path to being dedicated to expanding her consciousness and awareness. And she mentioned Ken Keyes, and the other book, see if I have it, that was so influential in my life, I'm checking my shelf here, was Ken Keyes' Handbook to Higher Consciousness. I don't see it right away. It was there. Things move in my office. I'm in a haunted building. So Ken Keyes wrote Handbook to Higher Consciousness, and he also wrote this book, The Hundredth Monkey, and I'm going to read to you from this. And I'm going to read this. You can see how old this book is. I think I got this at Thrift Books. It's kind of fallen apart. It was printed in first edition, January 1982. And it begins with, this book is dedicated to the dinosaurs who mutely warn us that a species which cannot adapt to changing conditions will become extinct. It's kind of a book about nuclear weapons. But I do want to read to you the story of the 100th monkey. The Japanese monkey, Macaca fuscata, has been observed in the wild for a period of over 30 years. In 1952, on the island of Koshima, scientists were providing monkeys with sweet potatoes dropped in the sand. The monkeys liked the taste of the raw sweet potatoes, but they found the dirt unpleasant. An 18-month-old female named Emo found she could solve the problem by washing the potatoes in a nearby stream. She taught this trick to her mother. Her playmates also learned this new way, and they taught their mothers too. This cultural innovation was gradually picked up by various monkeys before the eyes of the scientists. Between 1952 and 1958, all the young monkeys learned to wash the sandy sweet potatoes to make them more palatable. Only the adults who imitated their children learned this social improvement. Other adults kept eating the dirty sweet potatoes. Then something startling took place. In the autumn of 1958, a certain number of Koshima monkeys were washing sweet potatoes. The exact number is not known. Let us suppose that when the sun rose one morning, there were 99 monkeys on Koshima Island who had learned to wash their sweet potatoes. Let's further suppose that later that morning, the 100th monkey learned to wash potatoes. Then it happened. By that evening, almost everyone in the tribe was washing sweet potatoes before eating them. The added energy of this 100th monkey somehow created an ideological breakthrough. But notice, the most surprising thing observed by these scientists was that the habit of washing sweet potatoes then spontaneously jumped over the sea. Colonies of monkeys on other islands in the mainland troop of monkeys at Takasakiyama began washing their sweet potatoes. Thus, when a certain critical number achieves an awareness, this new awareness may be communicated from mind to mind. I'm going to read that paragraph again because it's so important. Thus, when a certain critical number achieves an awareness, this new awareness may be communicated from mind to mind. Although the exact number may vary, the 100th monkey phenomenon means that when only a limited number of people know of a new way, it may remain the consciousness property of these people. But there is a point at which if only one more person tunes in to a new awareness, a field is strengthened so that this awareness reaches almost everyone. The experiments of Dr. J.B. Rhine at Duke University repeatedly demonstrated that individuals can communicate private information to each other, even though located in different places. We now know that the strength of this extrasensory communication can be amplified to a powerfully effective level when the consciousness of the 100th person is added. And then he talks about nuclear war. This is 1982. Your awareness is needed in saving the world from nuclear war. You may be the 100th monkey. You may furnish the added consciousness energy to create the shared awareness of the urgent necessity to rapidly achieve a nuclear-free world. And then he goes on to talk about the atomic bomb. 1982, Ken Keyes. When a certain critical mass has a certain awareness, it has the ability to jump to the entire collective. It's the way it works. Let's read from Ernest Holmes. Let's see. I'm going to read this to you from Ernest Holmes. This is Creative Mind and Success. But first, some tea. How you guys doing? What's going on? This is my party. This is my New Year's Eve party. I might go out later. There's a lot of music where I live. They're having first night. Okay. Ernest Holmes. Old age and opportunity. One of the besetting errors of people is a belief that they are too old to do things. This comes from a lack of understanding what life really is. Life is consciousness and not years. The man or woman who is 70 years old should be better able to demonstrate than the man who is only 20. He should have evolved a higher thought, and it is thought and not conditions that we are dealing with. Amelia Barr was 53 before she wrote a book. After that, she wrote over 80, all of which had a large circulation. Mary Baker Eddy founded the Christian Science Church. Mary Baker Eddy was 60 before she began her work. and she attended to all of her great activities until she passed from this plane to a higher one. The author of this book, Ernest Holmes, once took a man who was over 60, one who thought his chance for success had gone, and through teaching him these principles in a year's time made him a prosperous businessman. He is now doing well and was never before in his life so happy. The last time he was interviewed, he said that business was increasing every day, and he had not begun yet. Every day he stands in his store and claims more activity. He speaks the word and realizes increase all the time. If this were not true, then life would not be worth the living. What is a few years in eternity? We must get over these false notions about age and competition. In the truth, the word competition is never mentioned. The people who think about it have never known the truth. Life is what we make it from within and never from without. We are just as old as we think we are, no matter what the number of years may have been that we have lived on this planet. Nice! I like that. This is Creative Mind and Success by Dr. Ernest Holmes. All right, let's read a prayer from Marianne Williamson's Illuminata. I think it's time for a prayer. And we will read a prayer for the world. Deep breath. We're going to say a prayer from the world out of Illuminata by Marianne Williamson. Dear God, we pray for this, our world. We ask that you remove the walls that separate us and the chains that hold us down. Use us to create a new world on earth, one that reflects your will, your vision, your peace. In this moment, we recognize the power you have given us to create anew the world we want. Today's world, dear Lord, but reflects our past confusion. Now in this moment, we ask for new light. Illumine our minds. Use us as never before as part of a great and mighty plan for the healing of this world. May we no longer be at war with each other. May we no longer be at war with ourselves. Let us forgive this century and every other, the evils of history, the pain of our common fears. Remove from our hearts the illusion that we are separate. May every nation and every people and every color and every religion find at last the one heartbeat we share. Through you, our common Father, Mother, and the Redeemer of our broken dreams, may we not hold on to yesterday. May we not obscure your vision of tomorrow, but rather may you flood our hearts. Flow through us, work through us, that in our lives we might see the illumined world. Create, sustain that world on earth, dear God, for us and for our children. Hallelujah at the thought. Praise God, the possibility that such a thing could come to be through you, through your light that shines within us. So may it be, so may it be. We thank you, Lord. Amen. Let's take a 3-minute break. 3 minutes just to kind of assimilate all that we've read. And listen to. And you can pour yourself a drink. Of any sort. Be right back. And we're back. Oh, there's so many books I can read to you. So many books. Stuart Wilde, Silent Power. Tell your friends, we're tuning into the power. And the book jacket, the inside, it says, within the pages of this book, I'll tell you about the silent power, its mystery, and how to get it. There's a simple trick you have to learn, and once you've got that, silent power becomes your unspoken credential. It's a charisma that gradually grows and develops around you. Through it, you can express a special goodness that helps people in this planet to change for the better. Let's see what we turn to. I don't want to start just jump right in the middle, 'cause we need some context. The mind functions in this way. If this relationship falls apart, I'll fall apart, my job might go, and with it my lifestyle, and following that my body may change from alive to not alive. He's talking about what can happen with energy exchanges and, relationships. At a deep subconscious level, an argument with a boyfriend becomes a threat, a life and death struggle, not just a discussion about the dispute in question. That's why people can get so upset about things that seem trivial. There's an energy war going on, each person seeking to preserve their etheric life force, while consciously or subconsciously, they're in a titanic struggle with the demons of insecurity. When people aren't worrying about dropping dead, they're usually thinking about themselves, preening the ego with self-satisfying thoughts, brushing its tail, and generally making themselves as special as possible. If they're not thinking about themselves, they're talking about themselves, keeping others amused with thrilling concepts of life in the slow lane. More often than not, people can be calling on you to listen, to notice and acknowledge them, to observe them. It can be exhausting. Don't do it to others. Stay inside your power, where you feel the most secure, and work on controlling the ego. Discipline the ego so that you can move from its fragile world to the immortal certainty of spirit. There you will feel the eternity within you, and your insecurity will gradually melt. You'll accept life as you find it rather than struggling against it, and you'll know that there's no death and no failure. So accept the comings and goings of life and flow to your highest good with little resistance and great joy. The more you control your emotions and the reactions of your personality, the more consolidated and powerful your etheric becomes. Once your etheric energy is no longer jerking back and forth, wobbling and squirming and falling over itself, a gracious solidity develops around you. Now you'll be able to see through your own etheric to the world of pure energy beyond. A quantum leap takes place within, and a great perception descends upon you. But remember, silent power is a strength you quietly express, not one you wield. It's born from the seeds of self-control. The Tao Te Ching says, to understand others is to have knowledge. To understand oneself is to be illuminated. To conquer others needs strength. To conquer oneself is harder still. To be content with what one has is to be rich. Good stuff. I'm going to read a little bit more from this book. It's really some valuable stuff. Part of learning not to lean into other people and other things. Part of learning not to lean is to get control of your dialogue. Most people talk too much, and what they do say is often just noise or irrelevant gibberish designed to keep themselves entertained. One of the keys to silent power is to control your need to talk. The rules of this consolidation are as follows. Make it a discipline not to discuss your personal details with others. Develop mystery, silence, and a secrecy about your life. Don't allow people to know your deep innermost self. Sure, you may have a friend you want to discuss things with from time to time, but generally speaking, don't talk about yourself. If you have to, do so only in general terms and only when people ask you. Of course, sometimes the situation may require you to talk about yourself. For example, in an office situation where you have to describe your abilities, but for the most part, keep it to yourself. If you have to give instructions or if you need to share your feelings when setting a personal boundary with another person, perhaps, choose your words carefully. A powerful person doesn't waste words and doesn't waffle and drift, but instead thinks through what he or she wants to say and expresses these thoughts succinctly and purposely. The most powerful way to speak is with brevity. Next, when engaging in dialogue with others, try to remain underneath them psychologically rather than talking across them or even down to them from above. Let me explain. Talking above people is trying to make them feel inferior, pushing yourself onto them, or attempting to force your ideas upon them. It's dominating the conversation with endless tales of your experiences, hogging the stage. If these people say they've been to China, and you respond by saying you've been there 19 times, you're trying to get above them and you're being combative. Sages don't need to combat. They are eternal and infinite and a part of everything. In the everything, there is no high or low, so they have no need to compete. They can just be. It's enough. The Tao says, those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. It goes on to say that once one has achieved self-control, the mysterious leveling, a perception of the infinite self follows, whereupon life is not limited by your talking or by your need to define it, and you in turn are free of its definitions, eternal. Very cool. Silent power. Stuart Wilde. I also have The Power of Now, which I haven't read a lot of, but I want to just open up to pick something out of The Power of Now. True salvation is fulfillment, peace, life in all its fullness. It is to be who you are, to feel within you the good that has no opposite, the joy of being that depends on nothing outside of itself. It is felt not as a passing experience, but as an abiding presence. In theistic language, it is to know God, not as something outside you, but as your innermost essence. True salvation is to know yourself as an inseparable part of the timeless and formless one life from which all that exists derives its being. True salvation is a state of freedom from fear, from suffering, from a perceived state of lack and insufficiency, and therefore from all wanting, needing, grasping, and clinging. True salvation is freedom from compulsive thinking, from negativity, and above all, from past and future as a psychological need. Your mind is telling you that you cannot get there from here. Something needs to happen, or you need to become this or that before you can be free and fulfilled. It is saying, in fact, that you need time, that you need to find, sort out, do, achieve, acquire, become, or understand something before you can be free or complete. You see, time as a means to salvation, whereas in truth it is the greatest obstacle to salvation. You think that you can't get there from where and who you are at this moment because you are not yet complete or good enough. But the truth is that here and now is the only point from where you can get there. You get there by realizing that you are there already. You find God the moment you realize that you don't need to seek God. So there is no only way to salvation. Any condition can be used, but no particular condition is needed. However, there is only one point of access, the now. There can be no salvation away from this moment. You are lonely and without a partner? Enter the now from there. You are in a relationship? Enter the now from there. There is nothing you can ever do or attain that will get you closer to salvation than it is at this moment. This may be hard to grasp for a mind accustomed to thinking that everything worthwhile is in the future. Nor can anything that you ever did or that was done to you in the past prevent you from saying yes to what is and taking your attention deeply into the now. You cannot do this in the future. You do it now or not at all. The power of now. So he also discusses the need to be in the stillness, in the present. That's where the power is. Let's take a 2-minute break. Grab a drink, grab a friend, make a donation. Let me play Auld Lang Syne just to kind of get you in the spirit. What the heck? And then we'll just take a minute. It decided not to work. Hang on. Let's take a break. My pedal wasn't working. Oh well. Love technology. Be right back. are back. Back to Stuart Wilde. It's difficult for most to understand how the ego causes them to miss opportunities. Unravel the baggage. Shift your mind about the need for specialness and importance, and suddenly you are free. What you really need is a happy, liberated, creative life. Seeking admirers and observers is for the weak and insecure. You are not a performing dog acting out, hoping for attention and a tasty morsel. It's degrading and debilitating, and spiritually it's rather ugly. There is no greater abundance than the abundance freedom offers. To unshackle from the ego's manipulation of you is to transcend. It's a hairbreadth from total enlightenment. What is the point of being enormously wealthy if you're neurotic and scared? What's the point of being famous if it means you create for yourself a luxury prison of sadness and loneliness? Surrounded by yes men and minions, but without the company of real friends who love you, who accept you unconditionally, people you can love in return. This is Stuart Wilde. And he says, as I said in The Trick to Money is Having Some, which is also a great book, The Trick to Money is Having Some. Money making is not a serious business, it's a game that you play. At first it may seem that it is a game you play with the forces outside of yourself, the economies of the marketplace, so to speak. But as you proceed, you discover that it is actually a game you play with yourself. Detaching from the seriousness of money involves moving from ego-oriented ideas to a spiritual comprehension of money. Once you are no longer feeling separate from the rest of the world and you have joined the infinite self within you, you are back in the divine light that connects us all. You see the evolution of the earth plane as a combined evolution of all the souls upon it. So rather than grabbing and pulling to make your assets and valuables separate from everybody else's, you realize that you are a part of everything and everything is a part of you, which means, of course, that everybody's money and wealth becomes your money and wealth. This helps you enormously because it opens you up to the possibility of receiving large amounts of other people's money without actually having to do any work, like winning a lottery, finding money in the street, coming upon a fantastic money-making opportunity, or whatever. Poverty is established by the separation that the ego creates. It's the root of poverty consciousness. But by becoming a part of all things, you create an abundance consciousness. Seriousness is a disease of the ego. Life isn't really serious, it's just a short journey. Yes, there may be pain, anguish, and other negative emotions in your life, but those negative emotions are generated by contradictions of the ego. The ego wants life to go one way, and then circumstances come along and contradict it. Our journey on this earth plane, when viewed in its spiritual context, is a completely positive experience. Seriousness warps your life and disconnects you from your childlike self. The creative power inside you is childlike, and creativity equals money. If you deny yourself access to the child within because you're too serious, you also block your connection to the divine light and your feminine self. Every creator who's any good uses their feminine side to create with, whether a scientist working on a hunch, a painter working on the interplay of colors, or a musician dealing with the juxtaposition of notes and chords. The feminine principles are soft and they appeal to human feeling. In fact, creativity is the only evidence left of our societies once they've come and gone. We don't remember the businessmen of Rome or the various generals that fought the Trojan Wars. Even the kings and queens of old are fairly uninteresting. What we value is the art, the architecture, and the feelings of bygone societies. What they believed in, what they did, the art they left behind. The Colosseum, Versailles, paintings, books, those are the things that have meaning, and so they last. We remember the yin, like the yin and the yang. We remember the yin because it is through the yin and softness that the God force is expressed. So if you are a little too serious, lighten up, dude. Try to make light of life. Embrace its childlike beauty. Being too grown up is a serious and painful experience. Don't mess with it too much. This is The Little Money Bible by Stuart Wilde. Really good stuff. All right, I want to go back to Louise Hay for a quick minute. Because I have had this, and I told you tonight I was going to read from spiritual books that have changed my life, that have really made me who I am today. And this is on my wall, and I'm going to read it to you. Take a deep breath and just feel it. Bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in. Let's do a group hug. 1, 2, 3, group hug. As we really take in these words. It feels good to do a group hug. Deep at the center of my being. Make this personal to you. I'm just going to read it in the first person. Deep at the center of my being, there is an infinite well of love. Close your eyes and imagine it. Deep at the center of my being, there is an infinite well of love. I now allow this love to flow to the surface. It fills my heart, my body, my mind, my consciousness, my very being, and radiates out from me in all directions and returns to me multiplied. The more love I use and give, the more I have to give. The supply is endless. The use of love makes me feel good. It is an expression of my inner joy. I lovingly feed it nourishing foods and beverages. I lovingly groom it and dress it, and my body lovingly responds to me with vibrant health and energy. I love myself, therefore I provide for myself a comfortable home, one that fills all my needs and is a pleasure to be in. I fill the rooms with the vibration of love so that all who enter, myself included, will feel this love and be nourished by it. I love myself, therefore I work at a job that I truly enjoy doing, one that uses my creative talents and abilities, working with and for people that I love and that love me, and earning a good income. I love myself, therefore I behave and think in a loving way to all people, for I know that that which I give out returns to me multiplied. I only attract loving people in my world, for they are a mirror of what I am. I love myself, therefore I forgive and totally release the past and all past experiences, and I am free. I love myself, therefore I live totally in the now, experiencing each moment as good and knowing that my future is bright and joyous and secure, for I am a beloved child of the universe, and the universe lovingly takes care of me now and forevermore, and so it is. By Louise Hay. Namaste. I love that. I've had that on my wall for decades. All right. We're going to read from this. I think I picked this up at a secondhand store and I just really love this book. This is by Timber Hawkeye called Buddhist Boot Camp. What are you guys doing? I'm so busy reading, I'm kind of missing what's going on. Joseph Campbell. The hero's journey. We're all on a hero's journey. I'm going to just open it up. Rewriting the stories we tell ourselves. This is good for New Year's Eve. Perfect. And so Timber Hawkeye says this. I visited my teacher's sanctuary on the big island of Hawaii for a week-long retreat a few years ago. Humbled to be in the presence of greatness with the opportunity to ask about the meaning of life, spiritual practice, and monastic ordination. When my friend and I arrived at their organic farm and settled into the yurt they had arranged for us to sleep in, I was immediately torn by two very opposing reactions to the place. On one hand, I thought it was the most beautiful and peaceful home I had ever seen. It was secluded, quiet, and surrounded by koi and lotus ponds, Buddha statues, Tibetan prayer flags, and exotic fruit trees on the border of the property next to a stunning bamboo forest with a view of the ocean and the neighboring island of Maui. But on the other hand, I wasn't one for camping. Unreasonable as it may sound, I had a terrible fear of bugs, and I was extremely uncomfortable sharing a living space with them. It's silly, I know, but I was raised in concrete homes that were regularly sprayed to draw a definitive line between the wilderness outside and the bug-free environment for humans on the inside. At the farm, however, that line was blurred and sometimes non-existent. So instead of feeling calm and serene at the sanctuary, I curled up in the fetal position and constantly felt like something was crawling on me. My friend suggested that I talk about my anxiety with our hosts, but I thought she was crazy. Here I am, I said, with the opportunity to tap into their deep wisdom gained from years of studying with gurus all over the world and silent retreats in the caves of India, and you want me to ask them about my fear of bugs? I shook my head and said, no way, it's too embarrassing. Just then our host walked into the yurt carrying a pot of split pea soup, steamed vegetables, and quinoa, and joined us for supper by the altar. Listening to their spiritual guidance, I felt like we might as well be sitting around a campfire in biblical times, hearing the word of God from the mouths of sages. It was majestic. Don't you have something to ask them? My friend suddenly said out loud, and I wanted to magically disappear to avoid the ensuing conversation, but there was nowhere to go and my invisibility cloak wasn't working. How do you guys do it? I asked. There was a scorpion-sized spider in the bathroom. There are crickets and centipedes everywhere, frogs, bees, and who knows what else is crawling on the other side of this glorified tent. Well, I'm extremely grateful that you guys invited us here. I don't think I can stay. I have to leave. With very few but carefully selected words of wisdom, they skillfully invited me to rewrite the story in my head about bugs. They adjusted my perception to better understand that perhaps the insects were not invading my space, but maybe I was invading theirs. Who was here first, they asked me, and I immediately realized that they were right. The spider was 1/100th my size, and probably more terrified of me than anything else. They suggested that if I tried naming the bugs as I saw them, Richard the centipede or Maya the bee, I would shift my consciousness to accept each animal as someone, not something. After a week on the farm with more opportunities to practice this new perspective than I care to admit, I realized that my fear was simply a learned behavior from watching my mother react to insects when I was growing up. As soon as I found that page in my mind where I wrote that bugs are bad, I was able to erase it and write in something else instead. All sentient beings are equal. I still don't find bugs adorable or have a pet tarantula or anything. But a year or so later, while visiting my parents in their sterile home environment, I noticed that a small spider had managed to get into the house and crawl onto my hand while I was having a conversation with my dad. Without even realizing what I was doing, I let the spider crawl onto my other hand and said, "Hey there, little guy, are you lost?" I calmly took him outside, where he leaped off my hand and onto the grass. I suspect he probably spent the next 30 minutes cleaning himself because an icky human had touched him. That's great. There's more. When I sat back down to continue the conversation with my dad, he stared back at me in complete shock. Isn't it refreshing to know that just because we've always been a certain way, it doesn't mean we have to stay that way forever? Our beliefs are merely stories in our minds that we ourselves wrote long ago. Knowing that, don't you feel empowered to rewrite them if they no longer serve you? Scan your mind for viruses called fears, anxieties, judgments, doubts, hatred, and despair, and put a little note next to them that says, "Outdated, no longer valid." And then there's a quote, "I've learned so much from my mistakes, I think I'm going to go out there and make some more." That's wonderful. Buddhist Boot Camp. Let's go to The Power of Awakening by Wayne Dyer. Do you guys feel wiser? I'm feeling wiser. Full disclosure, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for you too. But I wanted to start the year off with a lot of wisdom. Just like piling on the wisdom, the wisdom, the wisdom. And it's never, we can never remind ourselves enough of spiritual wisdom. Does anybody, is it New Year's for anybody here? Not quite yet? Okay. Let's see what I can turn to. Be authentically free. So you might notice if you've been with me the whole time tonight, Joan's relaxed. That's beautiful. That there, I know it's 3 full hours. It's a long time, but there seems to be like a theme running through. There seems to be similar messages running through, and that happened the last time I did this too. So it's like the spirit guides are making sure we hone in on a couple of important ideas. So Wayne Dyer in chapter 4 of The Power of Awakening. Be authentically free. Did you know that there are 2 kinds of freedom? The first is one I call counterfeit freedom. And it's exactly what the word counterfeit means, phony. It's not authentic, it's not real. Yet so many in our society pursue it relentlessly. Some of the most popular forms of counterfeit freedom come from drugs or alcohol. People pursue such substances in order to feel high, to feel giddy, to feel euphoric. These days, both legal and illegal drugs are widely available everywhere. The reason this is a counterfeit freedom is because you can never get enough of it. With a drug, you spend most of your time chasing your high. You briefly feel euphoric and free. And that could go for anything. Then a few moments later, you say, I've got to have some more of that. Obviously, if you really were free, you'd experience a sense of contentment rather than needing anything else. The test of authenticity is whether you need more of something in order to keep feeling free. If you do, then you are not free at all. This thing owns you, and you are its prisoner. You don't have it, it has you. It's not something you're using, it's something that's using you. Before long, you're using it again and then again and again. You can never get enough of what you don't want. Yes, it is ironic that the things we don't want are the ones we chase after. This search for freedom through substances has trapped users into a lifestyle of never getting enough of what they don't want. Just keep in mind that this could go for anything, not just drugs. For some people, it might be shopping. For some people, it might be negative thinking. And I know that Wayne Dyer's daughter had a lot of struggles with addiction, so I think he had this on his mind. They think they'll be free when they experience the fantastic high that comes with the drug or drink, but the pleasure is only physical. Authentic freedom doesn't demand any more. When you experience this freedom, you're not going to say, "Oh, I'm not satisfied, I have to have more." Instead, you'll have a blissful sort of feeling, the freedom of knowing your higher self, of knowing God. Authentic freedom causes you to feel a sense of, "I am here, this is it, I've got it." Anything that demands more from you, puts you in debt, places your health in jeopardy, or makes you enslaved to addictive powers is a counterfeit freedom. The higher part of yourself is not tied to the world of form. In fact, it has no boundaries to it at all. I call this being in nowhere. Think of when you were born and suddenly you go from nowhere to now here. It's the same concept. Nowhere to now here, which is your life, and then back to nowhere. But your awareness, this higher part of yourself, who you really are, was in nowhere, and now here, and it'll be you when you go back to nowhere. That which was never born, never dies. Before we show up in now here, we essentially sign an agreement concerning what is going to constitute our reality in this form. The agreement says that there are certain things that we can do and certain things that we cannot do. We can only accomplish so much, we can only run so fast, we can only do so many things, and so forth. We are given a whole host of very well-meaning sponsors, such as our parents, our neighbors, our teachers, our coaches, ministers. They all have good intentions, but they reinforce that agreement with their ideas of what limitations are, what's possible or not possible for us. The story for most of us is that we've been doing the steps that we've been shown by well-meaning parents, schools, religious training, and the like for our entire lives. I'm not here to question any of this. It's all according to the divine plan. But in order to get to that place where we can manifest miracles, we must understand the steps that we've been shown so we can erase them without judgment. I'm offering you the opportunity to write a new agreement now, changing the ones that you made so long ago. I'm going to just mention that tomorrow we have an event, a New Year's Day event, and we're going to be making vision boards. And now that I come across this in Wayne Dyer's book, I'm going to bookmark it because I would like to, tomorrow, if you want to join us, go to psychicannettedion.com and sign up. It's on Zoom. I think I'm going to lead us in writing a new agreement and letting go of the old ones that we kind of adhered to out of no choice. All right, that's Wayne Dyer. We have 25 minutes left. Thank you for being with me. Let's go to Don Miguel Ruiz, the Four Agreements. Let's go to the first agreement. Does anyone here have this book? The first agreement. Be impeccable with your word. The first agreement is the most important one and also the most difficult one to honor. It is so important that with just this first agreement, you will be able to transcend to the level of existence I call heaven on earth. Remember earlier, if you were here, I read the question that I asked Sadhguru at a satsang, and it's in the book, in this book. And when I asked Sadhguru, how can I keep my mind from bothering me? And my mind was saying I didn't need to do my practices, and he said, you got to be straight with yourself. Who's in charge? Similar to this. The first agreement is the most important one and is also the most difficult one to honor. It is so important that with just this first agreement, you will be able to transcend to the level of existence I call heaven on earth, once again. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. It sounds very simple, but it is very, very powerful. Why your word? Your word is the power that you have to create. Your word is the gift that comes directly from God. The Gospel of John in the Bible, speaking of the creation of the universe, says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word is God." Through the word, you express your creative power. It is through the word that you manifest everything. Regardless of what language you speak, your intent manifests through the word. What you dream, what you feel, and what you really are will all be manifested through the word. The word is not just a sound or a written symbol. The word is a force. Remember the force? It is the power you have to express and communicate, to think, and thereby to create the events in your life. You can speak. What other animal on the planet can speak? The word is the most powerful tool you have as a human. It is the tool of magic. But like a sword with two edges, your word can create the most beautiful dream, or your word can destroy everything around you. One edge is the misuse of the word, which creates a living hell. The other edge is the impeccability of the word, which will only create beauty, love, and heaven on earth. Depending upon how it is used, the word can set you free, or it can enslave you even more than you know. All the magic you possess is based on your word. Your word is pure magic, and misuse of your word is black magic. The word is so powerful that one word can change a life or destroy the lives of millions of people. Some years ago, one man in Germany, by the use of the word, manipulated a whole country of the most intelligent people. He led them into a world war with just the power of his word. He convinced others to commit the most atrocious acts of violence. He activated people's fear with the word. And like a big explosion, there was killing and war all around the world. All over the world, humans destroyed other humans because they were afraid of each other. Hitler's word, based on fear-generated beliefs and agreements, will be remembered for centuries. The human mind is like a fertile ground where seeds are continually being planted. You plant a seed. The seeds are opinions, ideas, and concepts. You plant a seed, a thought, and it grows. The word is like a seed, and the human mind is so fertile. The only problem is that too often it is fertile for the seeds of fear. Every human mind is fertile, but only for those kinds of seeds it is prepared for. What is important is to see which kinds of seeds our mind is fertile for, and to prepare it to receive the seeds of love. Take the example of Hitler. He sent out all those seeds of fear, and they grew very strong and beautifully achieved massive destruction. Seeing the awesome power of the word, we must understand what power comes out of our mouths. One fear or doubt planted in our mind can create an endless drama of events. One word is like a spell, and humans use the word like black magicians, thoughtlessly putting spells on each other. Every human is a magician. And we can either put a spell on someone with our word, or we can release someone from a spell. We cast spells all the time with our opinions. An example, I see a friend and give him an opinion that just popped into my mind. I say, I see that kind of color in your face in people who are going to get cancer. If he listens to the word and if he agrees, he will have cancer in less than 1 year. That is the power of the word. During our domestication, our parents and siblings gave their opinions about us without even thinking about it. We believed these opinions and we lived in fear over these opinions, like not being good at swimming or sports or writing. Someone gives an opinion and says, look, this girl is ugly. The girl listens, believes she is ugly, and grows up with the idea that she is ugly. It doesn't matter how beautiful she is, as long as she has that agreement, she will believe that she is ugly. That is the spell she is under. By hooking our attention, the word can enter our mind and change a whole belief for better or worse. Another example, you may believe you are stupid, and you may have believed this for as long as you can remember. This agreement can be very tricky, causing you to do a lot of things just to ensure that you are stupid. You may do something and think to yourself, I wish I was smart, but I must be stupid or I wouldn't have done that. The mind goes in hundreds of different directions, and we could spend days getting hooked by just that one belief in our own stupidity. This is a great chapter. Hang on. I just want to kind of move towards the end of the chapter. Imagine that you can create with impeccability of the word. With the impeccability of the word, you can transcend the dream of fear and live a different life. You can live in heaven in the middle of thousands of people living in hell, because you are immune to that hell. You can attain the kingdom of heaven from this one agreement. Be impeccable with your word. This is a great book. So let's take a 1-minute break while I grab another book. And don't go anywhere. We still have 15 minutes. Be right back. All right, I have books all over the floor. I'm going to read to you from one of my favorite books. If you don't own this book, you can get it at a used book. I find thrift books. I got this from thrift books. Richard Bach wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. This book came out in 1977. If you haven't read it, it's an awesome book. Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. And I'm going to read what Richard Bach said. I don't know if he's still alive. I hadn't thought to look that up. So Richard Bach says this. It was a question I heard more than once after Jonathan Seagull was published. What are you going to write next, Richard, after Jonathan Livingston Seagull? What? I answered then that I didn't have to write anything next, not a word, and that all my books together said everything that I had asked them to say. Having starved for a while, the car repossessed and that sort of thing, it was fun not to have to work to midnights. Still, every summer or so, I took my antique biplane out into the green meadow seas of Midwest America, flew passengers for $3 rides, and began to feel an old tension again. There was something left to say, and I hadn't said it. I do not enjoy writing at all. If I can turn my back on an idea out there in the dark, if I can avoid opening the door to it, I won't even reach for a pencil. But once in a while, there's a great dynamite burst of flying glass and brick and splinters through the front wall, and somebody stalks over the rubble, seizes me by the throat, and gently says, I will not let you go until you set me in words on paper. That's how I met illusions, the author says. There in the Midwest, even, I'd lie on my back practicing cloud vaporizing, and I couldn't get the story out of my mind. What if somebody came along who was really good at this, who could teach me how my world works and how to control it? What if I could meet a super advanced, what if Siddhartha or a Jesus came into our time with power over the illusions of the world because he knew the reality behind them? And what if I could meet him in person, if he were flying a biplane and landed in the same meadow with me? What would he say? What would he be like? Maybe he wouldn't be like the Messiah on the oil-streaked, grass-stained pages of my journal. Maybe he wouldn't say anything this book says. But then again, the things this one told me, that we magnetize into our lives whatever we hold in our thought, for instance, if that is true, then somehow I have brought myself to this moment for a reason, and so have you. Perhaps it is no coincidence that you're holding this book. Perhaps there's something about these adventures that you came here to remember. I choose to think so, and I choose to think my Messiah is perched out there on some other dimension, not fiction at all, watching us both and laughing for the fun of it happening just the way we've planned it to be. It almost brings tears to my eyes because this book is so old, and there's Richard Bach's signature. And I'm just going to read you how this book begins. And it begins with, this is written by hand. There was a master come unto the earth, born in the holy land of Indiana, raised in the mystical hills east of Fort Wayne. The master learned of this world in the public schools of Indiana, and as he grew in his trade as a mechanic of automobiles. But the master had learnings from other lands and other schools, from other lives that he had lived. He remembered these, and remembering became wise and strong, so that others saw his strength and came to him for counsel. The master believed that he had power to help himself and all of mankind, and as he believed, so it was for him, so that others saw his power and came to him to be healed of their troubles and their many diseases. The master believed that it is well for any man to think upon himself as a son of God, and as he believed, so it was. And the shops and garages where he worked became crowded and jammed with those who sought his learning and his touch, and the streets outside with those who longed only that the shadow of his passing might fall upon them and change their lives. It came to pass because of the crowds that the several foremen and shop managers bid the master leave his tools and go his way, for so tightly was he thronged that neither he nor other mechanics had room to work upon the automobiles. So it was that he went into the countryside, and people following began to call him Messiah and worker of miracles, and as they believed, it was so. If a storm passed as he spoke, not a raindrop touched a listener's head. The last of the multitude heard his words as clearly as the first, no matter lightning nor thunder in the sky about. And always he spoke to them in parables. And he said unto them, within each of us lies the power of our consent to health and to sickness, to riches and to poverty, to freedom and to slavery. It is we who control these and not another. A millman spoke and said, easy words for you, master, for you are guided as we are not, and need not toil as we toil. A man has to work for his living in this world. The master answered and said, once there lived a village of creatures along the bottom of a great crystal river. The current of the river swept silently over them all, young and old, rich and poor, good and evil, the current going its own way, knowing only its own crystal self. Each creature in its own manner clung tightly to the twigs and rocks of the river bottom, for clinging was their way of life, and resisting the current what each had learned from birth. But one creature said at last, I am tired of clinging. Though I cannot see it with my eyes, I trust that the current knows where it is going. I shall let go and let it take me where it will. Clinging, I shall die of boredom. The other creatures laughed and said, fool, let go, and that current you worship will throw you, tumbled and smashed across the rocks, and you will die quicker than boredom. But the one heeded them not, and taking a breath did let go, and at once was tumbled and smashed by the current across the rocks. Yet in time, as the creature refused to cling again, the current lifted him free from the bottom, and he was bruised and hurt no more. And the creatures downstream to whom he was a stranger cried, see, a miracle! A creature like ourselves, yet he flies. See the Messiah come to save us all. And the one carried in the current said, I am no more Messiah than you. The river delights to lift us free, if only we dare let go. Our true work is this voyage, this adventure. But they cried the more, Savior, all the while clinging to the rocks. And when they looked again, he was gone, and they were left alone, making legends of a Savior. And it came to pass when he saw that the multitude thronged him, the more day on day, tighter and closer and fiercer than ever they had, when he saw that they pressed him to heal them without rest and feed them always with his miracles, to learn for them and to live their lives, he went alone that day unto a hilltop apart, and there he prayed. And he said in his heart, infinite radiant it is. If it be thy will, let this cup pass from me. Let me lay aside this impossible task. I cannot live the life of one other's soul, yet 10,000 cry to me for life. I am sorry I allowed it all to happen. If it be thy will, let me go back to my engines and my tools, and let me live as other men. And a voice spoke to him on the hilltop, a voice neither male nor female, loud nor soft, a voice infinitely kind. And the voice said unto him, not my will, but thine be done. For what is thy will is mine for thee. Go thy way as other men, and be thou happy on the earth. And hearing, the master was glad, and gave thanks, and came down from the hilltop, humming a little mechanic's song. And when the throng pressed him with its woes, beseeching him to heal for it, and learn for it, and feed it non-stop from his understanding, and to entertain it with his wonders, he smiled upon the multitude, and said pleasantly unto them, I quit. For a moment the multitude was stricken dumb with astonishment. And he said unto them, if a man told God that he wanted most of all to help the suffering world, no matter the price to himself, and God answered and told him what he must do, should the man do as he is told? Of course, master, cried the many. It should be pleasure for him to suffer the tortures of hell itself, should God ask it. No matter what those tortures, nor how difficult the task. Honor to be hanged, glory to be nailed to a tree and burned, if so be that God has asked, said they. And what would you do, the master said unto the multitude, if God spoke directly to your face and said, I command that you be happy in the world as long as you live? What would you do then? And the multitude was silent. Not a voice, not a sound was heard upon the hillsides, across the valleys where they stood. And the master said unto the silence, in the path of our happiness shall we find the learning for which we have chosen this lifetime. So it is that I have learned this day and choose to leave you now to walk your own path as you please. And he went his way through the crowds and left them, and he returned to the everyday world of men and machines. Ernest Holmes said, we are here to be happy. This concludes our 3 hours of our New Year's Eve sharing of wisdom. It's a fundraiser, and thank you for your donations. Much appreciate. And I hope that you enjoyed the party, and consider joining us tomorrow for our New Year's Day event. Go to psychicannetteDion.com to sign up for that. And a group hug first, okay? I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I totally enjoyed being with you. It would have felt like a big loss if I hadn't done this. So, group hug before we say goodbye. Group hug. Let's hold this country and the United States and this world in a brilliant light. This year will be a year of hope renewed. That's a message. And I wish you the happiest of New Year's, and thank you so much. Happy 2024. May you be healthy and blessed and happy all year. Awaken the inner child. All right. Namaste.